politics. All that in the next hour. And with us for the duration today, former Children's Minister, Conservative MP Tim Loughton, and the former Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, Labour's Rachel Reeve. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Now, first of all today, let's talk about Google, because George Osborne is coming under fire over the internet giant's deal to pay £130 million in back taxes. A number of Labour MPs, including the Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, have argued it's not nearly enough and Google have been let off the hook. Here's the Chancellor discussing the deal over the weekend.
I think a very important principle in our system is that people's tax affairs are confidential between themselves and our independent HMRC. But the fact that Google are paying taxes, I think, shows our approach has worked. These were taxes on profits made when there was a Labour government, not a single penny was collected, and now to have Labour politicians complaining about it is a bit rich.
Can George Osborne really claim this as a success?
I think it is a success. It's progress, but it's only the start of progress. I mean, as George was saying there, these companies are paying no tax at all in the past few years. The new Profit Diversion Tax is actually putting a message loud and clear to companies that if they are selling goods and services to people in the United Kingdom and making a profit on it, then they should be taxed on those profits in the United Kingdom. Google is now going to pay up. It needs to pay up more, and in the future it needs to pay up its full fair share.
Yes, because
all other companies
you admit it's not paying its full fair share at the moment. If it's earning something like £6 billion a year, then £130 million in back taxes over 10 years hardly reflects that.
Absolutely right. So this is a good start, but it's only a start. But there are a lot of other companies who've got to come up to the plate now and pay up what they should have been paying, and more importantly, make sure from now on they are paying their full share of tax in the United Kingdom.
Well, it's better than paying no tax at all in terms of being taxed on profits, which is what was happening under Labour.
I don't think, though, it sends out a very good signal that you can get away with just paying, I think it's something like 2% tax on your sales. In 2013, Google had sales in the UK worth around £4 billion, and yet they're only paying £130 million over 10 years, so that's
sure.
£13 million.
But why didn't they pay anything at all under Labour?
Well, look, this review was conducted, but the conclusion that £130 million is OK, I think he really just isn't good enough. I mean, a lot of people at the moment are struggling as it gets to the end of January to do their tax return, and they're not able to go and have a little chat with HMRC to say, do you know what, I think it'd be about, you know, maybe I'll pay £1,000 this year. They have to pay what they are, their fair share.
Was it a mistake, though, that Labour didn't put more pressure on companies like Google at the time? I mean, isn't it a bit rich, people say, for John McDonnell to start squealing about not enough pressure being put on Google when none was put on them under Labour?
Well, pressure was put on them, but of course not enough tax was paid in that period either. But for George Osborne to come out now and say that this is a success, this is a good start, I just don't... It's a start, but it's not a good start.
But it's a deal.
It doesn't send out a very good signal to the other companies who are also in those discussions that they can get away with a tax bill that's this low.
Well, and that is an important point, that if these are what's been called a sweetheart deal, in other words, they can make a deal, pay some of the tax earned on profits, but not the full whack. It looks like it's been signed and sealed with HMRC.
Yeah, I don't like these cosy deals, and I think an aspect of this in the future has to be much greater transparency as to the tax regime that all companies, big, small, individual businesses, are subject to. The problem is there was a large grey area over many years using all sorts of, on the face of it, legal devices not to pay tax. It might have been legal, it wasn't
allowed by successive governments. It's all right for HMRC to sort of be blamed to some extent, but it is the Chancellor's fault and his responsibility.
Well, it's the government instructing HMRC as to how tough they should be. And as I say, we need to make sure that they are treated in the same way as any other taxpayer in this country. Yeah. And the measure of the success of this is going to be in future years, that Google, that all the rest of them are paying up a much larger slug of tax.
How much would you... I mean, the two of you, how much should they be paying in terms of proportion?
Corporation tax rate.
Yes.
It's 20%. They should be paying the full corporation tax rate. It's not good enough for them to say we employ lots of people, so we're paying lots of national insurance.
But it's to do with where they're headquartered.
Well, so do others as well.
But it is to do with, as you say, complex arrangements that Google have put in place to minimise their tax base.
It's about diverting profits unfairly.
Right.
And we've got various companies. Starbucks have now headquartered from the Netherlands back to the UK, and we need to see much more of that going on.
Would you, Rachel, call for action against these companies in terms of boycotting them? I mean, people did. There was a sort of people's protest against Starbucks, for example, and it had a phone. But would you?
It's up to people to decide whether
would you
they
advocate
want to.
it?
Well, I'm not going to advocate picking on one company or another, but it's up for people to decide. For example, with the living wage, which has been a campaign that I've really advocated over the last few years. One of the great things about that living wage campaign is you get a mark to say I am a living wage employer, and then we can decide as consumers whether we want to spend our money in a shop that pays their workers a living wage or not. And I think there should be something like that with whether you pay your fair share of tax or not, so we can make decisions, informed decisions of consumers, because at the end of the day, we all pay tax on what we earn, and that pays for our schools, our hospitals, our roads, our trains.
Well,
but Google benefit from all those things, but they don't pay into it. That's not good enough.
Boris Johnson has been saying the same, and Boris Johnson's been saying pretty well that.
And I think consumers have a big part to play in all this. There was a programme last week on BBC about the village of Crickhowell in Wales, which had declared itself a fair tax village, having worked out it could avoid tax by all sorts of underhand means, but it doesn't want to do it. And I think companies, as part of their marketing promotion, should show that they are paying a fair share of the tax in the UK. They're doing it legitimately, therefore you can go and shop or buy things safely from them.
At the end of the day, the government have also got a responsibility to make sure that we've got a tax code that means that people do have to pay their fair share of tax.
And it's
you can't just
transparent.
blame the companies. The government have got to get a grip on this and make sure that everybody, especially the biggest companies, pay their tax.
At last, which we didn't.
Well, they're not. 130 million is not a grip.
Which is more than naught under the last Labour
drop
government.
in the ocean, Tim.
Last words. Now, it's time for our day.